Alright everybody, how's it going today? Outside in the drive today, and I thought I'd go ahead and do a quick video about something that not a lot of people talk about. We kind of take it for granted, and that's lug nuts. Going ahead and changing a few of these. I had some problems with that 2005 Neon. A lot of the lug nuts weren't up to speed really, and so we went ahead and ordered up a new set off of Amazon. Got these things for maybe 30-35 bucks. They're really nice. We're going to go ahead and look at them, get them installed. Not going to show that. Frankly, use a torque wrench and common sense, and how could you go wrong? But we'll go ahead and look at these individual lug nuts. I brought in kind of three examples. I've got one of the fair condition old ones. I got one that was subpar to say the least, and then I got one of the new ones here. So we'll go ahead and look at these next, and then throw them on the car and be done with it. But not something everybody talks about a lot, so I wanted to go ahead and cover it here today. Alright, here we are with the lug nuts in question. On the left all the way, you can see that I have got a lug nut. It looks a little bit different than the one in the middle, even though they're actually the same. If you look at the one in the middle, you can see that it has a chrome cap on it. The one on the left is missing the chrome cap, as virtually all lug nuts of this style eventually will. Basically what happens is the steel core, and actually they have gotten, and by that I mean manufacturers, have gotten quite a bit better with this style of lug nuts since the 90s. The 90s, these things would corrode on the inside here on the steel core of the lug nut. This cap would expand. You couldn't get the lug wrench or the gun or whatever over it. It would swell up to the point that it was just absolutely ridiculous. You'd have to take a screwdriver and pry the cap off while it was still on the stud, and then you would be able to go ahead and remove it. The only catch was that these jackets are about a 1/2 millimeter thick. So when you add up both sides, that means that the new, if you will, size is only 18 millimeters. So now a lot of folks, let's say that corrosion wasn't just in the jacket of that cap, let's say it was on the stud or something like that, maybe it was over torqued by the last person who did it. Now you can't go ahead and remove that lug nut and you're stuck on the side of the road. Alright, so that's one of my biggest problems that I've got with this style of lug nut. As you can see, these aren't too bad. And just whatever rounding is on this thing is all that has happened in one or two usages, because I did know that I had a new set coming in. And with it being that rounded, and it wasn't over torqued, it came off with ease, relatively speaking. Think about if it was over torqued and the problems that you would have and how easily that would strip off. I worked in a tire shop for 7 years when I was in college. I saw this day in and day out. It's absolutely terrible. A better alternative is to go ahead and get yourself something like this, a nice acorn style lug nut. And again, it all depends on what you have as far as the style of your wheels and whatnot. Obviously with this traditional angle here and the acorn cap, my wheels are open in the front. There's no cover or anything on them, nothing to keep the dirt and debris out. So what I do is, of course, run this acorn style lug nut that keeps the stud from being exposed. These are some Gorilla brand lug nuts that I got off of Amazon for about $35. It's a chrome plated lug nut, chrome plated on the inside too. Can't see down there, I'm sure, but they did actually do a pretty good job chroming these. You can tell that the very, very back of the lug nut, like right at the very end here on the inside, didn't quite get chromed all the way. But at the same time, I've installed a lot of these. These are the Gorilla brand. McGuard is another good one that offers an exceptional lug nut at relatively low cost. If I can go ahead and do an entire car for 35 bucks, why not? Knowing that I won't have any of these other problems over here down the road. Things to look out for when you do this, however, I didn't really care because my traditional method is to go ahead and put a nice breaker bar along with the appropriate size socket for the lug nuts in the trunk and just forget about it. But this new one, as you can probably tell by looking, this new one's 21 millimeter, the old ones are 19. So that is one thing to take into consideration. My 19 millimeter lug nut wrench in the trunk will not work with these new 21 millimeter lug nuts. That aside, there's going to be great trouble-free service out of these lug nuts for years and years to come. Again, 7 years in the tire shop, and anytime somebody installed some of these, it was a safe bet that that was going to be the last set they ever needed for that vehicle. Again, you want to go ahead and double check your fitment. before purchasing. Not all vehicles will require these, of course. There are many different types of lug nuts. There are lug-centric wheels out there versus the hub-centric wheels and things like that. So make sure you do a little bit of research before buying, get the right fitment. I know they can help you out if you go to AutoZone or O'Reilly's or what have you. You know, they'll set you up with the right nuts. Just make sure that when you pull off that first one from your wheels that it does look like what you ended up buying. Another word of caution, go ahead and use a torque wrench while you are reinstalling these. I am a big fan of the torque wrench in general, but especially these days when you can go down to Harbor Freight and pick up a half-inch drive torque wrench for like 20 or 30 bucks. You know, why wouldn't you do that to ensure that you're not going to be over-torquing the lug nuts? That is such good insurance to, again, you know, how many times while I was working in that tire shop did I have people come in with a problem like this over here, or sometimes a combination. Maybe somebody jammed them on with a gun, or maybe the husband tightened up the lug nuts, you know, so that it wouldn't fall off. And boy, not only would the wheel not fall off, but the wheel also would not come back off without breaking the studs, due to the fact that he torqued them beyond the yield point. Alright? So use a little common sense when you're throwing these things back on. Use a torque wrench, set it to the manufacturer recommended specification, and you should have an enjoyable time with your lug nuts and studs for years to come. That's going to be pretty much it for this video. I mean, pretty straightforward, but it's just something that I don't think a lot of people really talk about, is lug nuts, and how even a simple thing like this, again, factory lug nut, could turn into this, and then that could end up being the difference between changing out to the spare and being stuck on the side of the road at 3 a.m. in an area with no cell phone service. Or perhaps it's just one of those days where you get a flat, and due to bad weather or what have you, there is a 6, 8, 12-hour backlog for AAA to come out and try and do something for you. So being self-sufficient in this case is going to save you at least 12 hours on a bad day, right? And then the last thing I'll say, since we are talking about changing out spares and things in regard to lug nuts, if you're going to have to change that spare, make sure you check the air in your spare, because again, working in the tire shop, I cannot count the number of times that people came in with a donut that was nearly flat. Over time it will lose some air, and since we only use our spare every decade or so, right, I mean, not a lot of us get routine flat tires. So check the air before you go on that vacation, before you go on that long road trip. Honestly, you should just go ahead and check the air in the spare anytime you go ahead and do an oil change or something like that, and quite honestly, that alone will save you the trouble of being stuck on the side of the road. So go out there, change those lug nuts, get something a little nicer, enjoy them. You'll look better, you'll feel better knowing that they're going to come back off with no problems. You're not going to be breaking studs due to corrosion and being seized up there where it's meeting the stud. And overall, it's just peace of mind. Words of advice from me. Go ahead and take them.